Lilo and Stitch, Mission Impossible. The numbers are just about in for the weekend, as well as the Last Rodeo extended trailer. You may not have heard about it, but it looks like a pretty good movie, as well as all the political news of the day. You're live with the guy every day at 12 Central. I got my producer Nat over here. She'll be reading articles and keeping us informed. Why don't you say hi?
Hello.
Hello. Okay, let's get right into it here. So let's start with the first article we had, and that was Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible. I think I switched them around. Okay, so here's the headline.
So summer bound for 4.2 billion after record 322 million. Memorial Day weekend, Lilo and Stitch dancing to 180 million holiday high. Mission Impossible 8, 77 million early Sunday box office update.
And this article was from the 25th. It's the 27th today, but these were projections. The projections stayed on point. I didn't get a newer article because the projections are going to also count for today. It's Memorial Weekend. It's a long weekend. So Monday actually counts for last weekend's weekend box office. It's expected that Lilo and Stitch will gross around 420. I looked at an updated article. That's 420 million globally, which is also almost $500 million, which is insane. Now, Mission Impossible didn't do quite as well. And when I reviewed these movies, I said I liked Lilo and Stitch a lot better. It really connected with me. Mission Impossible, I should have liked that one a lot more. It should appeal to a guy. It's an action movie. It's got a lot of history behind it, but something was just a little off. I still thought it was a solid movie, but it didn't really hit the heartstrings like Lilo and Stitch did for me. And the box office kind of reflected that. It made 77 million, or it's projected to make around 77 million domestically. So why don't we read a little bit of the article? And let's just remember this article is 2 days old, so I have updated information I was reading this morning I'll talk about.
So on the update from Sunday in the morning, it says, what we're seeing tonight doesn't come from Disney or Paramount, rather box office sources, but it appears that 180 million is within range for Disney's Lilo and Stitch after an estimated 47 million minus 15% from Friday. Even if Lilo finally files in the high 170 million, big deal. It's an epic opening record for Memorial Day. Saturday's haul, a record for Memorial Day weekend, buries that of Top Gun Maverick's Saturday, 38 million, and Pirates of the Caribbean, so the biggest ones. Rideback produced Lilo and Stitch. Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
So yeah, this ended up being a huge movie. We kind of projected that this would be a tent pole for Disney this year. I don't think they'll have anything better than this or bigger than this. A lot of people were looking at this as a pivot point or a turnaround for Disney. I'm not sure it's quite that. They have too many movies in the vault that are already done. They're going to release. They're still going to have a lot of woke content. They're going to still be extremely progressive. This one had sprinkles of that, but it was nothing you can't look past. It was a solid movie, even for a traditionalist that want to see Disney pivot back to its historical roots. What did you have to say about these weekend numbers?
They seem accurate.
Well, yeah, I know they're accurate. Did you think Mission Impossible was going to do better? Did you
No, because it's so long. We already said that not that many people would be interested in sitting for 3 hours.
Yeah, and I will put in kind of a highlight here. 77 million is still the most any Mission Impossible has made. So that's like a high point. The other really good point for Mission Impossible, internationally, that's where Mission Impossible is really going to shine. And we have an article about some other countries and how Mission Impossible is doing over there. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Tom Cruise and the studio was very aware of this. That's why they did a worldwide tour, and he was really interacting with fans globally. I was watching some of the X. It was pretty good publicity. And I kind of think this is where studios need to go. Just send their actors out to theaters and to different cities around the world and have them interact with fans, make movie stars again, rather than your traditional, we're just going to do some interviews with traditional media and things like this. Why don't we actually go to the next article? And I think it may be the South Korea article about Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible.
Yes, so Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning continues. Korea box office reign. Lilo and Stitch debuts in second.
Okay, and this is huge because actually Mission Impossible released early in South Korea. So it's already been out since last week. And So this is going into its second week, and it should have a fall off. It's not having a fall off in Korea. It's actually growing, and it beat Lilo and Stitch, especially in a market like South Korea. Lilo and Stitch, I would have expected to beat Mission Impossible, but no, this is the second week in a row. Mission Impossible is not only number one, but beat a heavy hitter like Lilo and Stitch in that market. And I'm expecting other international markets to follow similar suit. So it's going to be interesting to see when the Mission Impossible numbers come in after Monday, to see how they competed in different markets. I think it may have been a little bit of a misstep to launch Mission Impossible on the same week Lilo and Stitch came out domestically, meaning in the US. It would have been better if they would have released last week. But because Lilo and Stitch is kind of a 4-quadrant tentpole, meaning it will appeal to everybody, and people that may go see Mission Impossible would probably rather go take their families to see Lilo and Stitch and things like this. Mm-hmm. You were pretty surprised the fact that Mission Impossible did better in South Korea than Lilo and Stitch.
Well, yeah, because South Korea, the way I see it, usually has like this culture of cute stuff, and they really like cartoons. So I was surprised by that.
Okay, let's go into this movie, and I actually made this the thumbnail. It's called The Last Rodeo. I actually hadn't heard about this. When I was researching the movie numbers for Lilo and Stitch, Mission Impossible, and the rest of the weekend movies, this was in the top, I think, 5 or 6. It didn't make a ton of money, but it's a much lower budget movie by Angel Studios. Angel Studios is one of my favorite studios. It's not a major studio like a Universal or Warner Brothers or a Disney, but they do make amazing scripts with actual morals, values, and things like this. What do you have to say about Angel Studios before we get into this?
Well, sometimes they go a little bit too hard on the religiosity and the trying to be conservative, but I mean, it's better than other stuff.
Yeah, and I somewhat disagree because I'm used to the Netflix section of religious movies, and they go really hard. So if there's ever anything religious or they talk about God in this movie, it's sprinkled in lightly so it still can maintain its mass appeal to mass audiences. They did do a full religious movie about a nun, I believe, but that movie was actually based around religion, so it would make sense that it was heavily religious. This movie, I'm sure they'll sprinkle a tiny bit in, but it will still have mass appeal to a lot of audiences. Also, sometimes Angel Studios movies look a little bit too well polished, somewhat made for TV feel, but the scripts, I love the traditional aspects and the fact that they add moral values and good themes into their movies. We'll watch this. I'll have to pause it because I don't want to get hit with a copyright and things like that. Okay, one sec. Let me get my headphones here. Have you seen this trailer yet, by the way?
No.
Okay, the first half starts off okay, but man, then it really starts to hit. Let's play the...
Dad, I don't want him riding bullets. Please don't encourage him.
Let's go! I'm here with Billy Hamilton, champion of the PBR.
He's good.
Not as good as you.
Not as good as I was.
Okay, you can pause it for a sec. And I like the fact that they put it in a very certain space. This is obviously Texas or a Western theme feel in the modern day. I like whether it's New Orleans or New York when they can actually draw you into the vibe of the movie. This definitely has a Texas feel. Let's keep going.
And also, hello, Rafa.
Oh, hey, Rafa.
We are the dreams of our father.
You nearly killed yourself riding bulls, and you wonder why I don't want my son following in your footsteps. All right, Cody. All right, bud.
We are the souls of our sons.
It's just a concussion, right?
He has a brain tumor.
Okay, let's
Your
pause
insurance
it.
will only
And I really like how they're setting up this character with a traditional hero's arc. He's old, he's vulnerable, he can't ride bulls. He's obviously going to go into this to try to pay for his son's surgery. It's unlike these female character arcs where they're just strong, feminist, independent women and they have no vulnerabilities. This man has a ton of vulnerabilities, and that's what draws me into the character even in the trailer.
Cover roughly 40%. Are you going to be able to pay the difference? It could be $250,000. I can't afford it. I have no money. There's no way.
The path to tomorrow. The change that has begun. Oh, God. That's not bad for an old fart. Why am I here?
PBR Legends Championship is this weekend. $1 million for first place.
Have you lost your mind? You will not get on that bull.
Well, that went well.
Yeah, very. The legend
Okay, can you pause it for a second? And there's a lot of movies that have this story arc, but they haven't been made recently. That's why this can work again. It just has a traditional classic movie script feel, and it seems to be fairly well written. On top of that, I just wanted to give an interesting fact. And in Texas, they actually have bull riding teams in high schools and things like that. So a lot of people didn't know that. I didn't know that. Oh,
That's you.
that's me. Okay.
And the legend, Joe Wainwright, keep up with our current champions.
He could die out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the PBR Legends Championship.
Do you remember the last time you rode? I had to clean you, bathe you, walk you.
This could be Joe Wainwright's last ride.
Here we go!
Fearless.
Okay, and that's good. And I did play that. I know I have a bit of a more international audience. I think this is released in the United States. Angel Studios typically has US distribution. They've struggled with international. So, but this will definitely be coming on streaming. You'll probably be able to find it through Angel Studios directly. Is that usually how?
Yeah, eventually I think wherever you're located, you can like rent or buy.
Yeah, we're not connected. We don't get paid to advertise anything on our show. I literally just seen this as I was getting the numbers for Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch, and I do really like the studio and their direction and the fact that they're bringing back moral values and things to movies. So I thought I'd give them a mention and try to help promote them a little bit on my own.
And I mean, that story arc is very common with guys, especially the ones that have always been active, physical, and then they realize that their lives can't just depend on that because the body takes a toll. And I mean, I'm sure it resonates with you.
Well, yeah, Lilo and Stitch resonated with me because I was a little bit of an orphan and I had lived in Hawaii, so it tugged at the heartstrings more than most. Maybe that's why I gave it even a more stellar review than I would have. But even the trailer on this movie, I can really, really relate to. I used to compete in jiu-jitsu, teach wrestling, and used to be extremely physically active. And then my back went out about 7 years ago, so I had to completely give it up. I came to the point where I just given up on physical activity altogether. That's why I kind of started doing YouTube. I had to stop all my physical jobs. I used to do bouncing, security, underground mining, things like this. And I had to find something I would be able to do for the second half of my life. That's why I started this kind of small production studio. And now that's why I'm doing YouTube videos. But that being said, last week I went to the doctor and I'm starting treatment for my back. Surprisingly, they were able to kind of figure out it was a bit of a genetic condition, and my back's feeling a lot better. So this story arc is actually really tugging at my heartstrings. Just seeing the old man with his surgery on his back, and then he's doing push-ups, trying to get back in shape to save his son. I really like that story arc, and I know it's been done a lot. It kind of reminds me of Over the Top from in the 80s with Sylvester Stallone, where he's arm wrestling to kind of get his son back and things like this, and he's a truck driver. So,
and I mean, it also kind of, it's funny in your case because yes, it took a toll like everything you did, but it was going to happen anyways, which is kind of ironic. But you have tried to like go back. Sometimes you can, but
yeah, I tried jujitsu and things. I just couldn't do it. My back was really in a lot of pain and I was going really lightly as well. It was just, the fact that my back might be getting better now, I still now realize I am immortal. When I was younger, I was training for 6-7 hours a day. I thought I was invincible. I could do anything. Nothing could break me.
And it's a good lesson for any young man out there that thinks they can keep going. Like, your body will resent you eventually.
Oh, yeah.
And those like big giant guys that train and don't properly use form at the gym or try to show off, they might injure themselves for life, and they don't realize that.
Yeah, even now that if my back does get better it's by a miracle and I am able to get my physicality back, it's just something to stay in good shape and to have good health and good mobility at this point. I won't be using it to compete or anything how I used to
And you still have all the training in case you need it. Ever.
Yeah, but it's not as sharp as it once was.
No, but I mean, you're doing better than most guys.
Okay.
Rafa says, wow, guy, you're a potential kill space ing machine or ending machine.
Well, I used to be. Not
I mean,
anymore.
you could still bring it up.
Only when Nat tries to beat me up.
If you needed
to.
If you ever needed to.
Okay, let's go into, there was more movie news, and I found this story a little bit more interesting. It's not about numbers or how a movie's going to do. I've already talked about this movie. It seems to be doing great. The numbers are still really high. I think it was the third highest movie this week after Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch. So let's go into, read the headline here.
So Argentine movie theater ceiling collapses during Final Destination Bloodline screening in a very ironic twist.
And this is funny because this was Final Destination's Bloodline. The whole movie kind of revolves around you're going to die in a crazy way. Going to watch Bloodlines and have the theater roof collapse and you potentially dying. Really, all those people are going to want to see that movie again. They got an experience for the rest of their life.
Or maybe not.
If they didn't, I don't think anybody died as far as when I was reading the article.
So apparently the incident took place last week at Cinema Ocho in La Plata, the capital city of Argentina's Buenos Aires, according to Argentine digital publication Infobay. I don't like Infobay. During May 19, 9 p.m. showing of the sixth, around 40 attendees had their viewing experience cut short as the roof of theater number 4 let down debris. So it didn't fully fall, did it? Okay. Apparently, it doesn't seem, because they would have put it all the way at the top if someone was injured or.
Yeah, and I will say this: where was that in Colombia? I believe it was in Colombia. They had that full nightclub.
No,
collapse.
Brazil.
Oh, that was Brazil.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
It was Brazil.
And where everybody died, the baseball player
passed away. Yeah, Brazil.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Brazil recently had a nightclub roof collapse. We talked about this. I think we did 2 stories on it. And man, these places where you have really loud sound in really old buildings can really cause roof collapses. I remember when I was a lot younger, I went to a rave and stuff, and I went to where the Clippers used to play in Los Angeles, and it was a really old stadium. The Clippers weren't playing there anymore. They moved to a new stadium, but the ceiling was, parts of the ceiling were coming down during that just because of the sound waves.
The vibrations.
And yeah, the vibrations. But that is even a newer building than a lot of places in Argentina or Brazil. Some of these buildings, even in Mexico, are extremely old, and it might not be the best idea to be playing extremely loud sounds. At least when there's an earthquake, everybody's going to kind of run out of the building and evacuate. They're actually there to hear the loud sounds when it's a movie or when it's a concert. So they're going to ignore anything kind of falling.
Yeah, and Rafa says, wow, 4DX movies are getting crazier. They're getting better and better.
I'm going to steal that line for tonight's thing.
Just credit Rafa.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go into the next story here. And that was just something I wanted to talk about. And I had been talking a lot about the bond markets. I'm cooling down on that a little bit right now. And that was, there's a podcast. You will actually have to look it up on Google if you want to find it. It's called Guns, Goats, and Gold. Episode 213 specifically goes a lot into the tariff, the Doge market, the bond market, and Trump's overall outlook on how he's reshaping the global economy. These people are very knowledgeable. They have direct lines to people who are actually the architects of the new economy under Trump. So it really gives you insight on how this thing's being constructed with stablecoin, how they're trying to protect against bond market collapses. They had the same idea as me when this Japanese bond market collapse happened. It was an attack on the U.S., much like Canada had attacked the American bond market as well. But every time they attempt one of these attacks on the U.S. bond market and they fail, the system that's been created by Trump is kind of building up its immune system, and it's prepared better for the next time. So they have one more big attack, I think, in them, and I think it's going to come from Europe. They have $4 trillion they can try to launch at this thing. But Trump is also prepared, and he knows that's coming. And he had these 2 little test cases to see if the SOFR market would be able to withstand it, and it did, no problem. So it's going to be interesting to see what does happen. I'm glad I do have my food preparation because there is earthquakes here in Mexico City. But as far as the bond market went so far, it looks like it's been able to resist. I still think certain bond markets in in Europe and Japan are still on the teeter of collapse, and those countries need to watch out. But the U.S. really seems to be forging a new kind of economy. We actually had a debate yesterday with an economist about this.
Yeah, we have some very liberal friends that studied economics, and they were completely on the opposite side and trying to justify it a lot. But I think because of the division on sources of information and where the information is actually coming from, a lot of people get very connected and very tied to their ideas and the way they've been seeing the world for so long. And then you come and say something completely out of left field and they think it's impossible.
Oh, yeah. Also, I was talking about the U.S. creating 2 currencies, one for inside the U.S. and one for outside the U.S. So it would make their manufacturing far more appealing to export markets and things like that. It looks like that's what Trump is trying to do right now with his what's his digital currency called again?
Stable coin.
Yes, the stable coin digital currency. That's what he's looking to try to set up. A traditional U.S. Currency, which is the global currency, and the stable coin currency. So he can really provide the best for both worlds, the people that live inside the United States and the people that live outside the United States. It also looks like he's trying to go around the European digital currency. They're prepared and they're looking to release that, I would say, in the next couple of years. And if Trump has a better alternative of the stable coin, the European people are a lot less likely to adopt the European currency and go right into the stable coin that Trump is offering as well. So interesting things going on there. I just wanted to mention that. And I was going to give you kind of one of my big economic sources, and that's guns, goats, and gold. You will have to type it into Google. It's a website it will take you to, and it's just listed each of his podcasts he does every week. Episode 213 is an economist that he interviews, and they are extremely knowledgeable on that. I watch both of these people's, they're in 4 other think tanks with some of the biggest economists around the world, some of the biggest bankers around the world. And that's how they have a lot of this insider information. And that's how I was able to kind of know what was going on in the bond market last week and why Trump was able to successfully fend off the attacks.
And it was really interesting to see like our friends and their big TDS, like Trump derangement syndrome, just acting up at every stage.
Oh,
because one of them is here visiting from DC. They live in Washington, DC. And just the environment that they've been in for so long and the, what's it called, echo chambers, don't let them see outside of that.
No. It was actually very interesting. It was quite a heated debate as well. Yes. And I don't think they ever get pushback. So like these, when we talk about progressive bubbles, progressive bubbles in a lot of places, but in some places there will be a mix of conservatives and progressives and things like that. But in Washington, D.C. and places like California or Vancouver, it really is a bubble. So people don't hear another opinion. Mm-hmm. And when they give their point of view, they're absolutely stunned when somebody actually supports Trump or
contradicts them even.
Or is even willing to just say, well, maybe he's doing this. Their brain just breaks because they haven't been able to sharpen their debate arguments. so they don't really know what to say because they haven't been really challenged on it before. They're just used to giving their basic talking points and then people agreeing with them. So, okay, that being said, let's go into the next story here. Do you have it for us, Natalia, or you're on your phone?
I'm trying to reply to someone for an appointment we have tomorrow.
Okay. Well,
So number of, I don't know if I can say that word, but terrorist orism charges laid in Canada jumped 488% amid rising youth radicalization, RCMP says. And it's not the kind of radicalization they always keep highlighting with the alt-right and the white supremacists.
yeah, so this was a huge jump, 488%, and this is Islamic radicalists. What we had seen in the previous administration in the United States was a jump in white supremacist radicalism, they said, and these statistics were really being altered, and what was considered a terrorist act was expanded, so into hate speech and things like this. That's how they were able to manipulate the numbers in the United States. In Canada, this actually looks like a real number. And I can speak from personal experience. When I was a lot younger, I was on a basketball team in Vancouver. I was living there for a little while, and I remember the people on my basketball team. And when I went back when I was much older, I seen one of the guys I was on the basketball team with, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Ahmed went over to Afghanistan and he joined ISIS at the time." And I was like, "What?" And then this was common. I had ended up knowing 3 people that were radicalized from Canada that with Middle Eastern descent and went back to either fight for ISIS or fight for another radicalist organization. So in Canada, this actually happens a lot more than people would think. In the United States, there's not as many stories. I was pretty shocked when I went back to Canada later to find out a lot of people that I grew up with were radicalized and went to fight in the Middle East. That being said, it might not be that surprising because a lot of these people hold really strong ties to their country of origin. So,
and they don't assimilate into the culture. So these enclaves of radicalism and radicalization are fester. And because you can't say anything, because it's racist if you say anything, because you don't want to be seen as a bad person, and the government doesn't want to get in trouble for going after that. There's also a lot of gangs in Vancouver. Nothing gets done.
Yeah, and I kind of connected the next story with this. I understand this is Canada, and radicalization jumped up 488%. But let's go into the next one here, and that is in Germany.
So 18 injured in Hamburg knife attack as woman arrested.
And Germany,
interesting it was a woman.
And this is the thing, like, we were just talking about a 488% increase in radicalization in Canada. And then we're seeing in Germany, 18 injured with knife attack. This thing happens especially in Europe. Kind of these people get radicalized in these mosques and things in Europe and in these poorer communities. Then they go fight in the Middle East. They get their military training, and then they come back to the UK and Europe because they already have citizenship, and they bring that even more radicalized mindset back, and it turns into violent knife attacks and things like this.
But I want to see actually if it, like, they're not going to say where the woman, they're going to say German woman, but it could be an immigrant. But I really want to see if there's anything about background, because there won't. But
typically they won't talk about backgrounds anymore.
Because it says police said there was very concrete evidence of mental illness in the suspect and no evidence the attack was politically motivated. So it could be homelessness and drugs as well.
Yeah, but
that happens in Vancouver.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because I'm gonna say I've been looking at these attacks for a long time. The difference between somebody that's radicalized that does an attack, he was successfully injured 18 people. Typically, somebody with mental illness will only have 2 or 3 people they've injured maximum.
It says on Saturday, police said there was still no evidence of a political motive for the attack. Rather, there is now very concrete evidence of a mental illness on part of the suspect. Adding that the woman did not appear to have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And my other question is it a woman or is it a man that says he's a woman?
Well, they don't want to be clear on the article. That says, number 1, that it's most likely an immigrant. And number 2, that they don't want to call it terrorism because it's an immigrant. So they want to say it's mental illness. They want to bend the statistics. I was looking a lot into these grape gangs in Germany, and it was shocking. There was hundreds of grapes on New Year's one year, and what is her name?
So it looks like it was white.
So the lady that was running Germany at the time, rather than have the police log them in as grapes, she made the police nationwide log them in as assaults because she didn't want that spike and for it to make international news. This has been uncovered now. So they're really trying to cover up a lot of the crimes by reassessing into a different category rather than grape, assault, things like this.
So this is what the suspect looked like when she got arrested.
It almost looks like it might be a trans person.
That's what I'm thinking.
So
I mean, it could still be terrorism, but of another kind, lefty terrorism, which they also don't want to mention. But it does look like...
Okay, let's go into the next story, which is going to be Switzerland. And this is, again, all these stories are kind of interlinking. So...
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
So Switzerland currently looks like a war zone. A radical coalition of pro-Palestine Islamists and far-left activists tried to storm the main synagogue of Bern and lynch, I can't say that word, and do bad stuff to Jewish worshippers inside. This is police were able to drive them away, but they are now being attacked.
Okay, play the video.
Do you want sound?
Yeah. Okay, and you can stop it. And there has been this weekend especially, there was a lot of protest all over the EU and within here as well, and for much different reasons. But there's a general discontent not only against the government but immigrants. This happened to be against Jewish people, but there is just a lot of tensions going on right now all over Europe, and things are really a tinderbox and ready to explode over there. Tonight, I'm going to have even more stories. The EU is ready for a financial collapse. They want to be able to put it on the back of people uprising. That would give them a kind of a way out, perhaps. I don't know. Let's go into the next story, though, which is also, this is another protest within the EU. This one is... Something fell on the new set that I created. I have the TV from the other set, and I rearranged our night set over here. Something just fell.
It's funny how I said it was a bad idea to do that.
Well, it was a picture on the wall. I didn't tape it up. It was temporary, so I knew the placement next to your head where it would be. I'll do it better later.
Yes.
Well, at least it's not ghosts.
Yeah, or something worse.
Okay, so this was happening in the EU this weekend, and they're calling for Keir Starmer's resignation. Even if he steps down and resigns, they're just going to put another puppet in there. And if you don't know, I'm sorry, I'm going to get upset about this one. Keir Starmer basically put the UK back with the EU, but gave up their sovereignty. Basically, he signed a series of contracts privately this weekend, saying they would abide by EU law, but they're not going to have a vote or a say at the table, which is even worse than when the UK was part of the EU. Now they're basically part of the EU, but they don't get a vote. So this is absolutely insane. The people chose Brexit. When they chose Brexit, they chose to reject immigration and have a lot more nationalization. The government just continued on this path of globalism and progressivism, and the people are done with it. They don't know what to do. Now, the Reform Party, is it called UK Reform? Is on the uprise there. But if they just replace the Liberal leader, it's not going to necessarily trigger an election. So you're just going to have another puppet government. Let's play the protest here.
Do you remember if there's music?
Oh, let's just play it. We'll find out.
Fine.
I have a button.
Okay.
Okay, I muted the music here just because we didn't want to get hit. Yeah, there was music. And this happened in Ireland a few weeks ago, and tens of thousands of people were in Ireland with Irish flags. This is risky for these people in Britain because they can be arrested for things like this. Okay, and we can pause this. And this was not just, this protest may look a little smaller, but there were thousands of protests all over this weekend in the UK protesting Keir Starmer. So,
And here they're trying to paint it as hundreds attend protests across Southwest, so they always try to minimize it.
yeah, no, this was an organized protest and like thousands of intersections in public places trying to shut down the city. So that was kind of their plan rather than one massive protest. Also with one massive protest, often violences can occur a lot more easily. So it's much more harder to control the protest. Don't worry about it. Stuff's still following. Okay.
You want me to read about it?
Yeah, why don't you read a little bit about it? And obviously, this is coming from
The BBC.
progressive government media, so take it with a grain of salt.
So police said it has been a tense, challenging, and sensitive day with anti-government protests and counter-protests taking place across Devon and Cornwall. Hundreds of people have gathered in Plymouth, Exeter, and Truro as part of the Great British National Strike. Organizers said there would be peaceful demonstrations from about 12, asking the government to uphold the policies it was elected on in every city of the UK.
And they're trying to frame it as a national strike, but this quickly turned into chance to get rid of Keir Starmer. He is not popular right now, and I don't know what they're going to do over there, but they need a more populist government that the people will actually listen to and at least respect on some level, because right now they're completely going against the wishes of the people. They're not even trying to pretend anymore. Let's go into another protest or thing that's happening in Switzerland now. Do we have that one, or did you already play that one? We played that one. Okay. City center. Okay, the next one's Russia.
Yes.
So now take this first thing with a grain of salt. This was huge over the weekend when it first came out. There was a lot of articles that I was seeing about an attempted assassination on Putin. They tried to take out his helicopter with drones. This was Zelensky in the Ukraine that did this. He was visiting one of the former regions of the Ukraine in a helicopter, and they tried to take him out. This was heavily reported. Now that I went to go find an article today, the only places you can find articles is the Indian news, the Chinese news, and the Russian news. Trump came out with a statement about Putin going crazy. The entire Western media is saying Putin's going crazy. He's now bombing Kyiv and things like this. The reason he's doing that is because there was an assassination attempt on his life. If this would have happened to President Trump, they would have been going after that country balls to the wall. So the fact that Putin's now making direct strikes on Kyiv, it kind of makes sense when you put it on the context of they try to get rid of him this weekend with a drone strike on his personal helicopter.
Do you want me to read about it?
Yeah, you can read a little bit about
So
it.
this is coming from Newsweek. It's one of the few articles I actually found today.
And there is a blackout in Western media. It seems like Europe is so desperate to engage in a greater war that they're trying to trick Trump. Like Trump's going to be able to find out that there was an attempt on his life, on Putin's life.
So Vladimir Putin's helicopter was targeted by Ukrainian drones as he visited the Kursk region in a surprise visit last week, a Russian military official has claimed, they say. The alleged attack took place as the Russian president visited the border region for the first time since Moscow claimed it had repelled Ukrainian forces from the area last month. Putin's helicopter was at the epicenter of a large-scale Ukrainian drone attack on May 20th. Yuri Dashkin, commander of Russian Air Defense Division, said, according to Kremlin newswire TASS.
Okay, and that goes into the next story, which it makes a lot more sense. When Trump first gave out this statement, if you didn't know the attempt on Putin's life had taken place this weekend, then you would have just think the Western media is trying to frame it as Putin's going crazy. Putin never goes crazy.
He's always crazy.
He's very measured on his approach. So tit for tat, he's not going to be like Israel. When you hit Israel, they're going to hit you back 100 times harder, and they're not going to stop. He's a lawyer. He always frames what he does in a very specific context, in a very international law context. So if he's ever doing drone strikes on Kyiv or striking Kyiv directly, there had to be a reason. That reason was there was an attempt on his life. Trump either wasn't aware of this or he is really just trying to walk a fine line and withdraw from Ukraine. So let's read a statement here.
So Donald J. Trump says, I've always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly killing a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about soldiers. Missiles and drones are being shot into cities in Ukraine for no reason whatsoever. I've always said that he wants all of Ukraine, not just a piece of it, and maybe that's proving to be right, but if he does, it will lead to the downfall of Russia. Likewise, President Zelensky is doing his country no favors by talking the way he does. Everything out of his mouth causes problems. I don't like it, and it better stop. This is a war that would never have started if I were president. This is Zelensky's, Putin's, and Biden's war, not Trump's. I'm helping to put out the big and ugly fires that have been started through gross incompetence and hatred.
Yeah, and it looks like he just wants to pull out of this thing now. And if Europe wants to continue to fight it, then they can continue to fight it. He's really looking for a way out. I don't think he's going to be able to negotiate it into this thing. So I would like to see the U.S. pull out. I would also like to see the U.S. stop funding Israel and other foreign wars and really just focus on their national defense. This is what a lot of people within the MAGA sphere want. That being said, again, we were debating this weekend a little bit with some progressives and things like this, and they were just talking about how the U.S. is collapsing, this and that. I said, okay, if you had $10 million, where would you put it if you had to put it in one country? I said, what country is stronger than the U.S.? The whole world's in chaos. The U.S. has the strongest economy, and they actually have a game plan going forward with Trump. And they said, well, last year I would have said the U.S., but now I don't know. There's nowhere to put it. Well, the U.S. is one of the strongest economies, though. One of the other strongest economies, not in form of GDP, but just it doesn't get affected if there is a global economic collapse, or it's not affected by other countries' economies, such as the EU or China and things like this, is really Russia. Russia has completely made a self-sustaining society, and they are able to have their external trade, which will always increase their strength, but they made sure they have a complete internal network for their distribution, their economy, their manufacturing, things like this. And if sanctions are ever lowered on Russia, that it's going to become an extreme world power again. The fact that they have so much sanctions just allows them to have a really strong economy that's internalized. Very few countries, I would say maybe no other country in the world has a strong internalized economy like Russia. Other countries like North Korea have an internalized economy. It's just not strong, and the people there have no freedom. Russia may limit their people's freedom to some degree, but they have a lot more freedom than they do in North Korea. Right now, I would say the two models I like the best is the Trump economic model, the economic U.S. model under Trump, and the Russian model. If other countries would emulate this, they put their country first, make a strong internalized economy, and then expand on their external trade, but don't sacrifice your internal economy to make other countries strong. Mm-hmm. So focus less on GDP, focus more on your citizens to keep it simple, I guess.
Well, people would say GDP makes citizens more stable because it stabilizes the economy.
Yeah, they would say that, but I'm seeing the opposite happen in Canada. Okay.
Well, they have one of the lowest GDPs in the G20.
Let's keep going to the next story here.
Speaking of Canada.
And this gentleman came from Russia during communism.
To Canada
from Russia during communism. Mm-hmm. So let's hear what he has to say and how he views the Canadian government right now.
But freedom of speech is not just being free to utter speech, but to also hear speech. I was born in the former Soviet Union, and I lived there until I was almost 9. I remember being told in the Soviet Union that you could not listen to the BBC, and you could not listen to the Voice of America. You could even go to jail for passing around flyers that contained foreign views. That's why they called it the Iron Wall. And now, I hear Prime Minister Mark Carney saying that there's too much information and too much disinformation out there on US platforms. So what's Mark Carney going to do? Is he going to put me behind the Iron Wall again, deciding what we can and cannot hear? Will self-proclaimed socialist Stephen Guilbeault decide what is true and what is false and therefore safe for our consumption? the greatest spreader of misinformation is this liberal government.
Okay, you can stop it there. Mark Carney is trying to institute Bill C-63 along with other bills because, just like he said, people have too much access to information, and he wants the government to be able to steer people's minds and manipulate people's minds until they want what they want. There is a ton of government propaganda within Canada, and it was very effective during the last election.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, most of the mainstream media is subsidized by the government itself. So.
Oh, yeah. And tomorrow I'm going to come on a little later. I'll actually be here at 2 p.m. Central Time. I have to go pick up a table for our other filming room.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess it's kind of like a mid-storage room that we're turning into a filming room. So thanks for tuning in today. Did you have anything else or no?
Thank you, Rafa, for being here. We're finishing up early. I guess it's Monday. So there's a lot more stuff for the evening show.
Yeah.
So 9:15 p.m. on this channel in English, and then 8 p.m. in our Spanish channel with me.
And that's Central Time.
Central.
So
Time, yes.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later tonight or tomorrow right here, same place, same time.
No, not the same time.
Okay.
2 p.m.
In the show. I like to end the show on a confident note.
Okay.
You're still in my thunder here, Nat. Okay, that's it.
Can I hide you now?
Well, now it's not confident.
Do something confident.
Put me off the camera.